All right, let's talk. This one's always a hot button video, one that gets people, gets the people going. The 7 overrated draft classes. And again, just to specify what overrated means, these are the draft classes that see people buzzing about and people excited about that I'm just not as high on. And so, that's how I define overrated. I think some people sometimes get this a little confused and think that because I put a team as overrated, that means I didn't like their draft class or think it was a bad draft class. It could be a good draft class that I was pleasantly surprised by and still consider overrated. And in fact, I'm going to start off with a team I had in my 7 winners that I also think is overrated, the Houston Texans draft, which, I had them in the 7 winners because I love the CJ Stroud pick, but the reason why I'm not as high on it as other people are is I just did not love the trade for Will Anderson. I think the selection itself at pick number 3 is fine, but to me, I include everything you do draft weekend as part of the draft as long as it involves draft picks. So if you're, trading draft picks, if you're trading up, trading down, to me, that is a part of the draft, and I just didn't love the value they gave up for someone like Will Anderson, who, should be a great player. I don't know if I didn't have him as high of a prospect as like Aiden Hutchinson last year, but I think he's still a very good prospect. Probably would have been, I think Thibodeau also was a better prospect, but he probably would be number 3 and still totally worth a top 5 selection in my opinion. So it's not necessarily a knock on the player. It's more so, the Texans gave up their own first-round pick next year, along with a third-round pick in 2024 and a second-round pick and first-round pick this year. I mean, that is a massive hole to be giving up for a player who, we don't know if he's going to be good. Now, we also don't know if the players they gave up are going to be good because they're just draft picks, but 2 first, a second, and a third. Those 2 first could be really high. I mean, for all we know, next year's could be a top 5 pick for the Texans. They've been drafting there a lot for a player that we just don't know if he's going to be good. Again, some people say, well, you can't, they got a great player. Isn't that the goal of draft picks? And sure, but again, we all agree to some degree that you can't just give up as many picks as you want to get a player in a draft. You can't give up 10 first-round picks for Will Anderson, right? So where is that line? To me, 2 first, a second, and a third, those first being high first, 1 being 12th overall, 1 could be even higher than that. That's a lot for it. That being said, I still think it's a great draft because they got CJ Stroud. Who cares? They got a great quarterback. That's the end goal at the end of the day. But I just think that, I would have loved it a lot more if they just got CJ Stroud is how I view it. But again, it's still, as a whole, if you're a Texans fan, get excited. You got 2 good players. So that's why I have them there. Next up on my overrated list, I have the New England Patriots. I have as an overrated draft class. Now, Patriots got a lot of buzz for the Christian Gonzalez selection, and I agree. I'm on board. Christian Gonzalez, yes, deserves all the credit. Also, Keon White, a lot of people really liked that pick. I thought it was fine. It didn't move the needle too much for me. Projected to go 44th, ends up going 46th. Okay, to me, that's, solid. Love the Christian Gonzalez pick, as I said, but then it just had some weird selections sort of later on. While they did a good job of accumulating picks, as they always do, that's always smart, and they deserve credit for that as well. The Marte Mapu pick, another one of those situations where I can see why they like the player, but he's projected to go 157th. They got him at 76th. Then Jake Andrews, projected to go 270th. They selected him with pick 107, and then they got kicker and a punter, so obviously those aren't going to, usually not a great decision to do that. That usually does not work out. And they just had a ton of reaches. I mean, you look at down the board, with the exception of Christian Gonzalez, they only had 2 other picks out of their, I believe this is 11, 12 picks that ended up being, someone they selected before, or excuse me, after the consensus big board thought they'd already be gone. So a lot of reaches in this draft class. So they had one pick I loved, and then one pick I think some other people loved. So maybe people are paying a little bit more attention to that. I didn't love it's kind of the opposite of what the Patriots usually do. Usually I love what they do in the later rounds, but don't love what they do early on. This time it was the opposite. So again, I still think it's a solid draft, just maybe not what some people are hyping it up to be, which is like a great Patriots draft, in my opinion. We then have the Raiders. The Raiders I put on the overrated category. Sorry, Raiders Nation, I love you. Again, part of what people liked about this draft was the Michael Mayer pick, I think, is what put it over the top for people. I think a lot of people felt like the Tyree Wilson selection was a good, solid pick at number 7, and then Michael Mayer, someone who a lot of people had a first-round grade on, as did I. They get him early second, and then, didn't massively screw up any of the later picks. There's actually some later picks I didn't love. The Byron Young and the Trey Tucker pick I thought were both kind of reaches, in my opinion. Not massive ones, but not my favorite selection. But the real thing is the Tyree Wilson pick. I'm just not a Tyree Wilson fan. He's someone who I think I totally see the benefit in. I see the value in. I see why some people really like him. He's this incredible athlete. And unlike Trayvon Walker last year, does actually have some production in college, but the production is very light for someone you're drafting 7th overall. And he feels like someone who you're going to have to kind of teach the positions. So I still had a first-round grade on him. I'm just lower on him than others. So therefore, I'm obviously lower on this draft than others, meaning I'm going to call it a bit overrated. But again, love the Michael Mayer pick, and chances are there's a chance that Tyree Wilson ends up as the most talented edge rusher in this draft class. I just think the chances are higher that does not happen. The Chiefs are here as one of the overrated draft classes. Again, Chiefs kind of get they know what they're doing. Don't even pay attention to what they're doing. They're the Chiefs. They know what's happening. No one really, criticizes them because of that. And listen, there's been plenty of moves they made, like the Tyreek Hill trade, for example, that everyone criticized, everyone got burned on, even though I still think there's a fair argument on both sides of whether that's a smart trade or not. But, they won a Super Bowl right after, so now everyone is, sort of doesn't want to say anything anymore. Well, I say things that age poorly all the time, so for me, I'm not afraid to do it. I felt like they had a lot of reaches in this draft class, in my opinion. Again, if you look at where they ranked on the consensus big board versus where they were drafted, the only player that they ended up selecting that was, higher on the in the actual draft than on the consensus big board, so as in someone that got after they were supposed to already be gone, was Keandre Coburn, who they selected with pick 194. Other than that, just a lot of slight reaches, right? Like Felix Nduke Uzama was pick 31. He was projected to go 45th. Rashee Rice was projected to go 76. They selected him at 55. Wayna Morris projected to go 137. They get him at 92. Kamari Connor supposed to go at 242. They got him at 119. So just some kind of odd picks. BJ Thompson also almost 100 pick reach as well. So again, maybe they know something we don't. They've earned the benefit of the doubt, so I'm not going to completely criticize it necessarily, but I'm not quite as high on it as other people because I didn't love a lot of those, Rashee Rice and Felix Nduke Uzama, not necessarily guys I was overly high on. So yeah, that's an overrated draft in my opinion, but again, feel free to disagree. The Steelers. I put the Steelers on this list. This is a team that getting a lot of credit. And here's the thing about the Steelers. It's a me thing with them. This is totally a me evaluation and why I think that I'm a little bit, not quite, I'm not going to say bearish on the Steelers draft because I like the Steelers draft. Everyone liked the Steelers draft, but I didn't put it as one of my winners. And part of it is I think the Broderick Jones pick felt like a bit of a reach for need, which I'm actually okay with. I'm not mad at reaching for need because, you got to help out your young quarterback. So I'm not going to, crush that pick too much or anything like that. I'm just not crazy about Broderick Jones. Some people like him a lot more than I do. I think he's a solid player, but I'm not. 14 feels high for me. It does. Joey Porter Jr., I love that pick at 32. I think it's smart, but I'm not as crazy on Joey Porter Jr. as other people are either. So, he was projected to go 14th. I didn't have him as a first rounder, so neither did the NFL. To me, they kind of got fair value for a guy like that. So I like the pick, and since some people love that player, I'm more willing to give him extra credit for it. But at the same time, other people are going to be higher because they like that player more. So, again, it's just totally a me evaluation with them. Love the Darnell Washington selection. Should have been gone way earlier than that. So they had some picks I liked, like the Nick Herbig pick was solid. Keanu Benton I thought was solid. Corey Trice was good. So again, I like this draft. I want to be very clear. It both can be true. I can like a draft and consider it overrated. That's how I view the Steelers draft, in my opinion. So, 2 left on the overrated. Those are 5. And again, these aren't in any particular order. These are just, 7 overrated picks in general. The Vikings, put the Vikings on here. Again, these are not a massive overrated draft or anything like that. But, Jordan Addison projected to go 23rd. He went 23rd. So there you go. I wasn't as crazy on Jordan Addison as other people were. I think it was tough where, to me, there were really 3 good wide receivers in this draft class that were worth first round selections, and they all went the 3 spots before Jordan Addison went. There were 4 receivers taken in a row. He was the 4th, and I just didn't love. I just don't love him as a player. Now, I like Dwayne McBride a lot, who they selected at 222 in the 7th round. I think he's a really good running back. I hope he gets playing time because I think he could be really good. Probably is, where he was selected is going to have to play special teams to get significant playing time. So I love that pick, but again, can a 7th rounder really salvage the draft? Like I also thought Mekhi Blackman was a bit of a reach on top of it, and they had a couple other reaches. So, really the one other reach, I should say, Jay Ward. I don't know if they had any other reaches, but as a whole, again, very slight overrated for me. Not really one that I'm going to crush too much. And that's how I feel about the last 2, really, the Vikings and Bengals. I needed 7 on the list, so have to, every year I do 7, so had to come up with a couple more. Bengals, the other one I put on this list. Again, just I'm not a huge Myles Murphy fan. He was projected to go 17th. They got him at 28. That's great. Follow that. And again, people like this draft because of that. But I just wasn't a huge Myles Murphy fan. I did not have a first-round grade on him because I think that he's very raw, and I think people sometimes overestimate their own ability to be able to coach up a raw prospect, right? Every defensive line coach is convinced they can coach up a Myles Murphy. That's just, how it works. But it doesn't always work out that way. You're not always able to do it, and so because of that, I'm just not quite as big of a fan of the Bengals draft. Another draft I like, but I'm just not as big of a fan of it as other people are. Like DJ Turner, Jordan Battle, thought were solid picks at those spots. Never a huge fan of drafting a punter, but okay, fine. You did a pick 217. I'm not going to crush that too much. I'm not quite as big of a Myles Murphy fan as other people are, which is why I have him as a bit overrated, but nothing massive. So yeah, those are my overrated draft classes. Most of these I do like, which makes sense, right? It's hard to be overrated if most people are crushing the draft, right? Typically to be overrated, it should, when you hear it, take you by surprise and say, wait, how are they overrated? And hopefully when you hear my reasoning, you say, okay, I get it, but I still disagree. That's typically how it should be. That's how me saying something is overrated should make you feel. So we'll see if I did that. But yeah, that is those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.